If you feel like the Medicine Hat real estate market feels different right now, you're right. Prices, inventory, and buyer demand are completely different than in years past. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly what I mean by that. And if you're in the market to buy or sell this year, this video is exactly what you've been looking for. There is a ton that I want to unpack here, but number one, we need to figure out, we need a lay of the land of how we're going to compare right now in the real estate market in 2026, how to compare it to years prior. Now, there's a few ways that I want to filter this out so that it makes sense. Today is the end of April 2026. So in my opinion, it only makes sense to compare January to April of this year with January of April of previous years as well. I don't want to group entire years together because obviously real estate will ebb and flow, especially in Canada when the seasons dictate activity so strongly. And there's proof to support that with transaction count always increasing in the spring, summertime, and it'll dwindle off in the winter months. So this chart that I'm going to show you right now is only from January to April of each year's. First metric that I always want to look at if I'm looking at, hey, how healthy is a market? What is going on? Is the transaction count, meaning how many houses are selling. I think this is a great litmus test to see if a market anywhere is being active or if it's slowing down, increasing. Selfishly, as an agent, really all I care about is transactions. If there's transactions happening, I know that there is business out there to be had. And I want to look at transactions first to start to tell the rest of the story. Real brief chart here from 2022 to 2026, number of homes sold. In 2022, we were just coming off kind of the COVID years where things were crazy. And in Medicine Hat specifically, there was sufficient inventory on the market, meaning there was still a lot of houses for sale. And a lot of people wanted to make that move because money was cheap and there was product out there for them to go buy. You can see in 2022, 516 houses in the Medicine Hat Real Estate Board transacted by the time May 1st came. That is very heavy. And even if I went back to 2021, it would have been about the same. Those years were very, very active. As we go down into 2023 and beyond, you'll see that transaction count dropped quite a bit. The main reason for that, well, there's two. Interest rates were starting to increase, but more importantly, inventory levels started to drop. There just simply wasn't as much product out there on the market for buyers to pick from. So that will naturally slow the market down, especially after a couple of hot years. And a lot of agents I talk to, they're like, oh, I wish it was back in 21 or 22, but those were anomalies. Those years were very active and definitely not the norm for Medicine Hat. In 2025 and 2026, kind of leveled off, to be honest with you. So this year has been very much similar to last year. Now, the interesting point, and I don't love looking at average sale prices, there's a better metric that I'm going to show you next. But if you were just to group all the average sale prices of those transactions, you can see a heavy increase from 22 to 26, like literally 70 grand, 80 grand difference. That is because of the inventory levels dropping. It's a simple supply and demand. And I hate when I see things about, getting into the weeds of why prices are increasing and all different metrics and everything like that. But in my opinion, the main lever for increases in value is inventory. It's not interest rates like a lot of people would think. Maybe in bigger markets, interest rates make a bigger difference. But in Medicine Hat, in these 4 or 5 years, interest rates have only kind of went up. They've kind of leveled off the last year or so, but that is not indicative of prices dropping. Prices have been going up. So this is a very telling chart to get a sense of what's happening in the market right now. And I don't think as we proceed through this year that prices are going to level off at all. I think they're still going to increase as well. Now, another way that we can kind of gauge what's happening in the market is if we take or pick a specific product type and look at what have values done for that type of product over the past few years. We can't really generically do it by sale price, like, hey, let's look at what's sold between 300 and 400,000, because those houses don't sell every single year. So hypothetically, let's pick a solid 2-story home in the south part of town. Family-oriented property, not crazy big. Let's go 1,600 to 1,900 square feet. Let's look at these houses and let's compare year to year of what they've been selling for. So I've toggled my screen here to pull up two-story homes in the south part of Medicine Hat and properties that have transacted multiple times in the last few years. And if you're wondering what your house is currently worth, if you bought it a few years ago, this is the best way to kind of figure out how much your property has appreciated over the time that you've owned it. It's difficult to just apply the average sale price increase because every house is different. And like I said before, every house doesn't sell every single year. And what I did here was I pulled two-story homes in the south part of town that have transacted. And this one over on Hampton sold in 2023 for $530, transacted this year for $615. Now, yeah, a homeowner might have done some things to it, but you're going to get the gist here real quick. Sterling Link sold for $499.9 in 2025, sold for $533 this year, so an increase there. This property over on Hampton's Way, I sold it in 2023 for $435. 2 years later, transacted for $490 on market. And again, these are sold, so these are not just properties that are on market and didn't sell, but this one over on Vista sold in 2023 for $395, sold this year for $90,000 more. So if you have a popular home, meaning it caters to a big demographic of buyers, I would say that your property has appreciated more than just what the average market in Medicine Hat has. And that is because inventory levels are low, meaning demand for your product is increased and thus value is going to increase too. That's literally as simple as it gets, my friends. Supply and demand. So for homeowners, even if you aren't thinking of selling, it's good to kind of know what your property is worth because that can open you up to some other options. Maybe you want to pull some equity out of your property and do something with that, whether it be renovations or maybe you pull that cash out and go buy a rental property, things like that. I want to show you another area of town here in a different market. So this is going to be in the Northlands Point condominiums where there's lots of activity, lots of turnover. I'm going to show you how much these have appreciated as well. On my screen right now, I'm just zooming out on what condominium complex I'm talking about here. And this is on the north end of town here, Northland Point condos. There's a ton of activity in this condominium, and it's one of the largest condominium complexes in Medicine Hat. So it's good to look at, hey, if you own a Northlands Point condo, what has your values done? Or if you're looking to get into the market, what have these condos done in terms of value? I put in my system the average sale price in that complex over the last decade, okay? And when I started in real estate in 2018, I remember these units because they were depreciating. It was kind of a race to the bottom. If you had a listing in there, you needed to list it at the cheapest possible, and they were transacting for like around $150. Now there are different styles. There's bungalow units and two-story units, but we're just grouping all those together. And look at the appreciation in the last couple of years on these units. They've jumped $60,000, $70,000 in value. And the reason for that, at least I believe, is because these condominiums are becoming a very viable option for first-time homebuyers and or revenue seekers as well. And what's happening with the first-time homebuyers right now is that they're basically getting priced out of the market for like a detached home. Before, a year or so ago, or 2+ years ago, you could buy a first-time home, really solid property for around $300,000, and now that same property is around $400,000. So first-time home buyers are kind of getting forced into a lesser market, like a condominium, as a first-time property. Still a lot better than renting. So that's where these properties are starting to appreciate as well. Good solid condominiums, townhouse style units, half duplexes, very much the same. Those properties are appreciating at a very high rate as well. I don't believe this stuff is going to be cooling off anytime soon, but I wanted to provide you some context as to why I think and believe and see and feel the Medicine Hat market is appreciating over time. I just don't want to give you one data point and saying, yeah, it's appreciating because of this. I wanted to show you and prove to you what I'm talking about here, and I hope that I accomplished that in this video. So if you have any questions about buying, selling, what values are doing, what your property is potentially worth right now, feel free, call me, text me anytime. All my information is in the description below. Hope that served you well. Hopefully that was some value to you. Take good care. We'll see you soon.